All right.
So
She was so nice. I don't know if she'd ever remember.
Okay,
that, so
thank you, Larry.
so long.
We're as ready as we're gonna be.
Wish we still owned it.
I know, right? She always says that. She's like, why did we sell so many things
Yeah.
we could use today?
Okay. Call this very 15-minute late, July 7th, 2025, meeting of the Patton Township Planning Commission to order. First on the posted agenda is going to be additions to the posted agenda, which I believe we're doing as
Public comment.
public comment. Right, so we're going to do the approval of the minutes. So approved. I have a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? The meeting, after 15 minutes, I should have been ready for this. Okay, the regular meeting minutes from May 5th, 2025 have been approved. Going to public comments, let's go ahead and start with Director Pam Adams from CRPA.
Hello, my name is Pam Adams. I am the new planning director. You guys might have met probably Mike Coca. His last day was in mid-May, and he is now the township manager for Adams Township, which is north of Pittsburgh and the Cranberry area. So I have been promoted. I've been with COG for 17 years, the last 6 of which have been as sustainability planner. So I'm familiar with the center region. I've got lots of relationships with the different municipalities, but the planning commissions are new to me, so I look forward to working with you all. And tonight I want to give an update on where we are with the comprehensive plan. Jenna, actually Summer, and you maybe have heard Mike have given different updates along the way. And so tonight I just want to give you an update on where we are with that. So when you look at what we've done over the last year, the team has put out a survey. You hopefully were part of that, where you put some responses in. There was a SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, grow, and themes activity. If you remember the Planning Commission, you went through an activity and did that activity. Again, the idea is we're getting feedback from stakeholders, community members, and Planning Commission members. That was part of that process. The team also met with 24 different stakeholder groups to get information on the vision for where and what we want this community to be in the next 20 years. And then there were 23 outreach events last year that occurred. So if we take all of the input that we've gotten, we've built out the values and vision. So in front of you is, before I get there, we take all that information and we see what are the key issues, what's rising to the top. And basically we heard a lot about housing affordability, housing diversity. There's a great need for that. And there's also interest in economic development. If you want to look at the top to the bottom, people want more diverse economic options. And so if we're going to bring in more diversity on the economic side, we need to make sure we have places for them to live, right? So it's like a connection, obviously, between those two. You'll see that there's connections really with all of these. And if people are coming to live here, there's a lot of interest in having connections from one community to the next, whether that be through transit, sidewalks or infrastructure, but trying to make sure that we're building housing where people can easily get to where they want to work and play. So that leads us to sort of a balanced community. There's a strong interest. We live in this area and it's a beautiful valley where we have urban, rural, and suburban, and people are interested in making sure we preserve the farmland. How are we going to grow and where does that growth belong, as well as the stormwater infrastructure, what impacts does that have? And there's always an underlying theme of sustainability and safety. We want to make sure that, first and foremost, we're providing a safe environment for our community members, and we need to look at things holistically so that we're preserving our resources and making sure we're doing the right and making the right decisions. So those are kind of the key issues. So if you take all the input that we got, then on the next slide, it shows what our values and visions are. So that's the document that was put in front of you, and we can send it to you so you can see it in bigger font if you need. But basically, there's a committee called the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee, LUCI. And that committee is made up of a representative from each municipality, and they meet on a monthly basis. And they took the information from staff and developed and approved these values and visions. So basically, this is a center region plan, an update, but hopefully these values and visions speak to you as well, right? This is your plan. So basically, your representative was on the LUCI committee, and as a group collectively, you know, the values are we want to be good stewards of our natural resources. That's one of the values. We prioritize safe transportation options. We support workforce growth and opportunities. We believe in the power of collaboration. It's really important to work with our neighbors, our community members, and have that collaboration happen so that we can embrace our unique blend of urban and rural environments and champion sustainability and resiliency. So basically, these values are setting the foundation, and then if you dig a little bit further, we get into the vision of, okay, what have we heard from community members of what their vision is? And it's looking at housing variety for every stage of life, conserving our precious natural resources and farms, broadening our multimodal transportation system, cultivating opportunities for a diverse local economy, enhance collective well-being and experience. So again, you heard those key issues. They're putting them into words and to values and visions that make sense for our community. So those are the values and visions. And for each municipality, you might have, you know, Patton's priorities might be more on one side or the other, or they might all speak to Patton Township, right? That's going to be your input as we keep going through this. Then on the back side of the document are the big ideas. And basically, these are going to be the chapters of the comprehensive plan. So if we take the foundation of the values and vision, the 5 main chapters, you know, our main focus of where we want to be in 2045 is fostering housing variety. And again, I'm not going to read all the description under there, but it's kind of, again, this housing variety, housing diversity, connecting beyond cars, partnering for a thriving future, advancing purposeful community design, and cultivating environmental stewardship. So those are the big ideas, the foundation for our comprehensive plan. And what the next step is going to be is identifying the goals and the strategies on how we're going to get there. So that's kind of where a lot of our outreach is, and I'll talk about that at the end. So those are the chapters. Another big component of a comprehensive plan is a future land use map. I don't know how many of you are familiar with future land use maps. Perfect, some of you are. But you're probably familiar with your zoning map, or does Patton have an official map?
No.
Okay. So there's also a document in here that explains the different types of maps that are out there. One is the future land use map, zoning map, and official map. So we just want to make sure that everybody understands this is not a zoning map. So it's not, you know, connected to any ordinances, but it's really a planning tool to help us guide and think about future development. It's important for our community members to be part of this, to think about where we want development, where we want our investments to go. It's really a policy guide. And so what we're looking for now is basically trying to get stakeholders, community members, to be able to go into this FLUM, future land use map, is what we call it, and put in some points. So Jenna can click on that link there, and we will send this link out to you afterwards so that you can go in and look at the map. But it's basically an interactive map where we're kicking off. July is sort of the kickoff month to get input from the community.
Oh.
And there's some inputs out there.
Hold on, let me close this one. Okay. Can everyone at home see the website
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen. All right, so when you go to the hub site, this is the information that has up at the top, you can see there's future land use map at the top, big ideas, what we're doing for engagement resources. So you should check this out, and again, we'll make sure that you get the link for this. But if you click on the future land use map, it's also there. Yep, it's what's new. That's the link, and somewhere is the map. When you first go into the map, it comes up with the information on what a future land use map is, right? So I sort of gave a brief description, but the average person on the street might not know, so they can read what a future land use map is. And it has also the hub site there, link that you can go to. So you click enter, and it's going to take you into the map. What you first see is the legend on the left. You can see how it's kind of in gold, and it explains what those different points on the map are. You can see, and you can't quite see it from here, but when you go at home tonight and you look at it, you can see there's a little house on some of these points on the map, and that is, where do you think new housing could fit and what type? And we'll walk you through, but at the legend, it's basically trying to explain what this map is showing you. Another option is a little commercial dot there, and that's, what do you think, where do you think new non-residential development would be most appropriate? And then the last option is what type of land use change do you think? If something is currently farming, do you think it should be commercial? If you think something's currently residential, you can make those choices. And if you keep paging down, there's the key for all of the different parcel colors, so you can understand what those colors mean. And again, this is the future land use map for the region. If you click on app details, that basically is your guide. It's the step-by-step. First, you want to use the add points. It explains what the map layers are. So those are basically the directions. I'm not going to read through those. I'm going to try to talk you through that. The next one are map layers. So currently what's showed are what the future land use map is, as well as some hillsides. So you can kind of see where there's some slopes and stuff, but you're also able to do Google satellite. If you zoom in and you want to try to really understand what a piece of what a piece of land is, you can see that Google satellite there to get a little bit more information if you so choose. And keep it there, that was good. Because if you click on a parcel, and if you don't remember what the color coding is, it will tell you that if you look under feature info. All right, so the point of this map is that there could be some places when you're driving around that you're like, I don't understand why this is always vacant, or this would be a great piece of land for something else, right? It's kind of like, it can be overwhelming when you look at the whole map as far as like, what am I supposed to do with this? But if you drive around your community, or and again, this doesn't have to be just Patton, right? You're in the center region. If you live, work, or play here, you drive around, and there could be some areas where you're like, this would be a great place for housing, or this would be a great place for commercial, and it's all residential right now. So those are the types of things that you're thinking at. So if you pick a point somewhere on the map, particular parcel, Jenna's going to do a nice zoom in.
You know where I'm going. All right.
And I think you're at Westerly Parkway.
Yep. So we have SCASD, or the high school, right here. We've got Welch Pool over here. We've got Weiss and the shopping center, which I will be focusing on for this demonstration.
Right. So if you click on it, so yeah, if you're going to add a point, it tells you to pick the parcel. Where are you thinking? So right there, Jenna put a point for the housing one. So the first one, if you have housing, there is a drop-down window, because we don't want to just know if you want housing, it's what type of housing do you want? Do you want low density, medium density, or high density? And basically, it has a description that goes with it, right? Low density, single family housing, medium density is more the duplex, quad type of thing, and high density. And if you don't know, you don't have to put a value there, but at least you've now put it in there. And then you can write in here if you have comments to go with that point.
Okay.
So that's the first choice, is to be able to do a housing. If you are more interested in a point of description, that's not housing and you're thinking more commercial, then you would go to the second feature and you could click on that and it says, where do you want that feature to go? And for demonstrations purposes, we're going to use the same area. And again, we're not just interested in any commercial, it's what type. Do you think it should be retail, office, mixed use, industrial? So we're trying to get high level, but also some details on what you're looking for there. And again, it gives the option to write a comment in there if you so wish. And then the last button that you have the choices is a new feature. And this is an area where you're looking for a change in the way it's currently on the land use map. And so if you click a spot, what type of change are you interested in? And it could be that you want it to be a new land use, change to a different land use, improve the current land use, or no change. And then this one has 2 drop-down windows to change. So if a change is proposed to what description, you can define what you want it to be. So again, you can keep it generic, or the more detail we get, the better that it makes the map. So that is the future land use map, and it's going to be open July through September. We're going to be out at community events trying to promote the people go in. And again, if there's land out there and parcels that people are driving by, this is the time to be able to start providing that input. With that information, some of it might be that the community member doesn't quite understand that it's a steep slope or it's on a community well. So then we will work with the UAJ, wastewater, and the water and kind of evaluate it for, is it even possible what they're asking and saying. Then we will come back and meet with Patton Township Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors at a joint meeting in the future in September, October. We'll be working to schedule those so that we will present the information on where all those land use changes are for Patton Township specifically, so that you get an idea of what the community is saying, but you will make the final decision as to what goes forward with any changes. We'll be talking to focus groups, and we're going to community outreach events to share the big ideas, continue to get information and ideas on what type of strategies there are, and promote the future land use map. So if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Any questions from this side of the table?
Amazing.
Any questions over here?
No questions at this point.
Any questions online?
No, just a comment. I think it's amazing. Great work.
Yes, I have to say that for everybody out there watching or watching later, this is your chance to actually play SimCity and actually in 20 years see if it built out the way that you wanted it. So thank you very much. And again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you more, and I look forward to seeing you at the MPO when it's not crashing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I just said thank you.
Okay. Are there any other public comments online before I go to the room? Are there any public comments from the room? Again, this is going to be for anything that is not on the agenda. Okay, hearing none, moving on to the R4 zoning proposal. I apologize, I am still trying to cycle back to a proper time. East Coast.
That would be Jenna.
Okay.
Yes. Get everyone set up at home. All right, can everyone at home see my R4? Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. So the Township Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission have been approached by Elliott Killian to consider R4 high-density residential zoning as an alternative to the existing R3 medium-density residential zoning in Patton Township. The Planning Commission is being asked to review the proposed R4 zoning regulations and provide comments or recommendations regarding their potential application and impact within the township. So what staff has done, we have reviewed Mr. Killian's proposal. We have provided essentially a summary of our review that was in your agenda, the staff report, the CRPA at the top, there's two of them. But essentially, I'm going to go through what we discovered as we reviewed the proposal that was provided to the board and planning commission for consideration, our recommendations, our analysis on moving forward with these items in place. So we will review his proposal. I've defined it out individually by each comment. I will summarize these elements and give you our analysis as staff and then our recommendations. So timeline for this, 2021, we had the Housing Task Force report that went out. 2022, ADU discussions begun and died fairly violently, is my understanding of that. I was not here. I heard, even from Ferguson, though. So in 2024, you may recall, I gave a massive presentation on attainable housing ordinance, what it is, the process, next steps forward, et cetera. Part of that, short-term rentals, the consideration, the impact that that may have on the housing in Patton Township. So we just completed the property maintenance code adoption, which is essentially getting the short-term rentals at least permitted for those safety issues, as well as the nuisance and establishing that point system. So that was just completed, I want to say, in May. The board adopted that. May, we also received the R4 proposal that was submitted, and we have reviewed that. And now, also tonight, we have a topic for the attainable housing ordinance, and that is the work that will begin now that we have completed the property maintenance code.
Our audience at home cannot see your slides.
Dang it. Maybe. Let's go.
Do we have a date on when the short-term rental policy is going to go into effect?
It's in effect now.
Can the audience at home
is.
see it now?
When did it go into effect?
It was 5 days after the
And it's
ordinance
on
was
summary,
adopted.
right?
It was adopted the
Okay.
18th of June, so it would have been the 23rd.
Okay.
We're trying to give people grace, though, as they're coming into compliance with that. We want people to come into compliance rather than, and we know that, it's changed, so we're doing outreach as well to folks.
So June, what was the date?
June 23rd.
And
Actually, I'm sorry, not June 23rd. It was passed in May.
Yeah.
End of
When I
May.
talked to Nicole, because I had questions with her, she said it hadn't been put into place yet, the final date.
Yeah, it's adopted, and we were trying to get people to comply by September 1st, but the
That's-
ordinance is effective by law 5 days after it's adopted. And it was actually adopted in May. I was thinking of the home-based business ordinance, which was adopted June 18th.
So official date is?
I don't remember the date in May when it was
Okay.
adopted.
No, I mean, the official date that everybody has to be compliant by.
Well, technically, they should start being compliant now.
Okay.
the
But like I
legal
said, we're
answer
trying to
is
give
now.
people some
that's all
leeway
right
right
then.
now. We're trying to do
Little
some
bit of
education.
grace.
Yes, a little bit of grace.
The time that you guys will start finding people if they are not in compliance.
Well, we're not going to fine people. We're going to start amassing points if they're not in compliance.
And that time will,
Well, we're hoping people do this through the summer. So by the time the school year starts, people are in compliance, hopefully.
So we originally said like August timeframe was the deadline. So people are asking, and the reason I asked that is people are asking, we want to get it done and be compliant, but we don't want to overstimulate the zoning officer or the
It goes through the code, yeah. So I would apply now. Now is a good time to apply. I would apply, encourage people to apply now and get that taken care of.
All right.
so everybody at home, you're supposed to be in compliance. Go ahead and apply. You'll start amassing points sometime after August, probably September 1st.
We don't want people to amass points, so if you know of a short-term rental and you're curious if they gotten their permits, you can feel free to give us a call or the code office a call, and we will do outreach then. Same with the home-based businesses. We want people to comply with the ordinance. If you know of a home-based business that's in your neighborhood that you don't think is complying, let us know.
Okay.
So a quick summary of the memo that was included in the agenda packet. The R4 proposal aims to address housing crisis with increased density, reduced parking, and modern design. It aligns with some goals in Patton Township's housing strategy. It's premature to pursue zoning changes before adopting the housing ordinance, and that is in staff's opinion. And that is based off the fact that if we are going to incentivize people to give them more density in housing specifically, we want to make sure that our affordable, attainable housing ordinance is in place before they take advantage of that. So we're going to walk through some of these items that was included in the proposal. Again, back to this three-pronged housing strategy. We had the property maintenance code. We're talking about the attainable housing ordinance tonight. And then really, Mr. Killian's proposal comes into play at 2 and 3 in this, in my opinion, because if you sat in on the planning commission trainings, when we discussed attainable housing, these ordinances, in order to make them work, you need to ensure that whatever incentives, the carrots that you're going to give the developers are worth it to them. So Mr. Killian pointed out a lot of those items that should be considered as we look at that attainable housing ordinance as well. So the R4 district summary, this was Mr. Killian's proposal to, in comparison, the existing R3 zoning district. So he wanted a maximum height of 55 feet. Currently, you can have anywhere from 35 to 50 feet with our existing ordinance. Density, with his proposed changes, you get 71 apartments per acre. Right now, we're about 32 apartments an acre. Granted, that will change depending on that height allowance that our ordinance already currently permits. That is the minimum. Lot coverage, 75%. We're roughly right now at about 40%. Keep in mind, though, if you permit developers to increase impervious, they don't get out of the stormwater ordinance. It's more costs. They will need to figure out how to accommodate that increased impervious. Not an issue. It's more something to be aware of. Parking, decrease the parking of what we currently have. I personally don't have an issue with this. I think most modern ordinances, their parking is in their saldo, so you have that waiver opportunity similar to what we saw with Space Mark and the bike parking. You know, a self-storage unit doesn't need 22 bicycle parking space. You know. Setbacks, 25-foot perimeter, and then in our existing R3, it does vary based off of the type. We do permit single-family homes. Those setbacks are different in comparison to a multifamily building, et cetera, et cetera. However, there is enough flexibility in that R3 existing ordinance to get you that density. It allows you to bring buildings closer together in order to increase your open space around. So there is a lot of flexibility in there if the developer wants to make that work. Accessory uses, so in the proposal, the idea was on-site amenities could reduce vehicle reliance by residents. So what we're seeing in a lot of these bigger housing developments, and I'm talking Florida, Texas, et cetera, they have a gym on site, they have all the laundry on site, they have staff on site, they actually have a property maintenance person living in the building and their family. So there's someone there. So the idea is to take these short little traffic items and put them within this community that they built. So the only thing that the R3 does provide is reducing parking spaces if you provide the bike parking. So our analysis, overall, we went beyond R3. We looked at all of our zoning districts just to see if these items that Mr. Killian has included in his proposal are being met in other places. We did note the R2, it permits reduced setbacks, similar to the R3, if it's single-family home, duplex, et cetera. You have that flexibility to change your setbacks and reduce them. R3, it permits currently up to 60 feet for large buildings if you meet all of those requirements. So the height is there. MXD and MXD2, that is again where we're getting that height of 50 to 60 feet. And that is where we provide the mixed-use and transit-oriented principles that Mr. Killian has included in his proposal to the township. Then we took it a step further there, and looked at other opportunities and considerations. And these are going to be things that are going to come up as we discuss the attainable housing ordinance. So accessory dwelling units, if we are going to permit these types of units, a lot of the properties that have the area to do it don't have public sewer. So these are going to have to be considerations that we take into account as we work on allowing density. Is the septic inspection up to date? Public, I'm not generally concerned about that. It's really going to be the properties that are outside the regional growth boundary. And then we have the planned communities. So this is a concept. So if you look at the zoning map behind you, Oakwood, Grays Woods, Toft Trees, these are your planned communities in Patton Township. They are governed by a master plan. So at that time, the developer submitted the plan. This is what they wanted their setbacks to be. This is the height. These are single-family homes. This is your townhomes, those communities are governed by those master plans. So any change to the township zoning, i.e. we permit ADUs, we permit this, it has no impact on any of these communities. They are still governed by those master plans. That was on that master plan as a single-family home, you can't put another dwelling unit on that property. And that's a bigger issue that a lot of communities in Pennsylvania are now looking at, because we do have a lot of these planned communities, and we are trying to promote density, and how do we get that done? Now, there are processes, they're usually included in your ordinance on how to amend those. And it's similar to an HOA. You need a majority of the phase that you are in to sign off on this change. You need to get it recorded, etc. It's not easy. So that is something that we all need to consider, because in my mind, unless the majority of these communities want to participate in ADUs and whatnot, we can't even consider them in a lot of this stuff. That's a huge chunk of the township gone. And then transit coordination with CATA. So reduced parking and density, they hinge on viable transit options. There are current driver shortages, CATA, and that may affect services expansion. Granted, we would not be permitting this type of density anywhere outside that regional growth boundary. Ideally, CATA has some sort of service or any service that they offer for that, whether it's CATA Go, et cetera, something there. But coordination with CATA would be essential for long-term feasibility of all of these recommendations for density, more people. If we reduce parking because there is a bus route right outside, what if the next day the bus route changes? You know, so there's a lot of things that we need to consider as we go through this process. So staff's recommendation is to acknowledge the value of Mr. Killian's detailed proposal. It is good. He did a lot of my work for me. He pointed out a lot of little bitty things. Normally I sit down with zoning officers and we'll just go through and figure out what are those little things that will make it that much easier for a developer to want to do this, to give that density. What is going to make it work in their mind? And it really comes down to the numbers. If the numbers don't work, they're not going to do it. So the proposal, it is in alignment with many township housing priorities. Again, we have the structured approach established. We're adopting the attainable housing ordinance. I plan on using the proposal to inform a lot of these incentives, a lot of these things that we can tweak for a developer that is going to be building affordable units, absolutely. And to stick with that process is what staff is recommending as well. So next up, we will be talking about the attainable housing ordinance process. R4 concepts I plan on keeping in my notebook, and we will be talking about them as we get through more of the attainable housing ordinance, what it's going to look like, and then what incentives. This is the incentive discussion of your ordinance and what we're going to offer.
Okay,
That's what I
so before we get to the attainable housing ordinance timeline, since that's the next thing on our agenda here, do we have any questions from this side of the table?
No, I think maybe timeline is the key. We'll hear about that.
I'm just curious, as you started to think about this, are there like specific areas that would make sense that kind of pinpointed like, hey, these are some areas that R4 actually would make sense for within the township?
I mean, I like to look at it, any place makes sense. Hypothetically, if you are willing to give enough density, look at it this way, if you're looking at over beyond TJ Maxx and student housing development, Bryn, I think it is, they're already, what, 3-4 stories? In order to say, okay, this zoning district, we're gonna permit you to go up to 6, is it gonna be worth it to them to completely demo that whole thing just to build 2 more stories? So there is going to be a little bit of a reality check with all this stuff as we look at this. The one area that comes into mind is out by Burnell. I think that is a great opportunity out there. And then it's going to be anywhere after that future land use map discussion that we just heard about. Where are we going to grow? And what is that going to look like? Because that is a new development and that is 100% going to have to comply with your attainable housing ordinance. So unfortunately, most of the township is built out. There are a few parcels left. But I would be looking at those transitional areas between your transportation corridors for more density in that area. Yeah.
Questions from this side of the table?
No, I was just thinking about different areas. And I was in Ferguson, I was just in Half Moon Township, and those aren't going to be in our area. So there really isn't a whole lot of opportunity to change.
Yeah. Unless you really want to give a lot, which would be like 12 stories.
Right, right.
And anybody online?
I have a question. I have a couple. One question is about Patton Crossing. I mean, I wasn't part of that, that development plan, but I did see the, architectural renderings and the size of those facilities. What is not working there, I guess, in terms of being able to attract, affordable development there for housing?
It's going to be affordable, isn't there?
There will be portions of that development that are affordable. That's a great question, Ellen. The portion, the last I had heard, it's the portion that straddles Ferguson Township. They are looking to get LIHTC money from federal government. So that's low-income housing tax credit. I don't think they're going low. I think it's going to be the mid-income in that area. But at the end of the day, and you're going to see this as we release our housing trends report for the comp plan, we are a student-driven, dominated housing center region. Like, that is what we are. It's always rental. It's a very powerful thing. Everyone knows they're going to make money off of it because we have a ton of students and they're going to pay whatever they want to get it. So that's going to be a lot of the issues. But as for that development, I mean, that is a master planned development, not in the sense of a planned community like we have in Grace Woods and Toft Trees. But part of their development, the reason I would say it's been slow, A, COVID, B, it's very hard to find developers who do housing and do the commercial and do everything. Like this, it is a sort of community in that way. There is residential, there is commercial, and it's hard to get all of those pieces in line. So that's pretty much stalls a lot of these types of developments. They take time.
It just seemed to me that your when you mentioned the mixed use, our ability for mixed use, it seems like that falls in line with some of the other objectives, and so that's why I guess I was wondering if there's something more that could be done there, just with.
It's a good thought. And maybe it was just Mr. Killian was looking at MXD already provides this, and target the R3, because that's the next highest density residential district, and that it was the goal of his proposal, more housing.
Because it does say, doesn't it say 50 or 60 feet or something in there, the mixed-use ones?
Yeah.
Good.
Anything else, Ellen?
The only other question had to do with other incentives. I just was thinking back to the developers that were at the training session, and they kept talking about sidewalks on both sides. And I guess I'm just wondering how much input the developers are going to have into the final ordinance or the changes in the ordinance.
We will have representatives from the development community on the advisory committee for the attainable housing ordinance, which we will discuss shortly on that setup. And that's best opportunity to get their input. Additionally, I could see us having just a one-on-one. We didn't want to stick all of the developers on this committee, so it may be that we have a one-on-one with all of the big development players in town, just to get their read on the proposed draft.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. White, I see that you've patiently had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say, so I'm not a resident of Patton Township, so I just wanted to get that out there. I live in Ferguson, and it's my hope that Ferguson does something similar as far as increasing density is concerned. So I know it's nice to see that Patton is, at least hearing what some of the other people around this area are saying, because like many of the people within the center region, I work in downtown State College. So I work in the borough. I live in Ferguson. I do a lot of my grocery shopping in Patton. It's just kind of how our, not esoteric, our outdated zoning makes it. And so I come to this and I look at it like, okay, yes, Patton is already like developed. The borough is already developed. Ferguson is already, I say developed. We have a lot of farmland, but, back to Pam Adams about preserving farmland, if we don't increase density, then as the center region expands, then it can only go horizontally. And so I just wanted to come and express support of Mr. Killian's proposal and say like, yeah, we should probably be looking at building up as opposed to out, even though we are, already path dependent based on our old zoning. So I just wanted to thank everybody here for giving Mr. Killian the time of day, and just wanted to come and give my support for him as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody from the room? Yeah, can you go up to the mic, please? Yes. And please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Robert Ziegler. I actually reside in Milheim Borough, so it's a bit of a trek, but I work at State College, and I'm involved with a lot of things in Center County. So I wanted to thank you guys for looking at this proposal. My organization, Central PA United, we've been looking at housing affordability. It's one of the top issues of the county. It may not be spoken, but it doesn't matter where you're at, what your political affiliation is. It's an issue all across and up and down the spectrums. Looking at building up instead of out does save on infrastructure costs overall and wear and tear on roads and other things. It also helps with public transit being a more reasonable thing to do in certain areas. And as you're aware of CATA doing its best to cut on costs, density helps with that. So thank you for looking at this. I do appreciate that. Personally, I know a lot of our members like that as well, some of which reside in your township. And hopefully we can help out with any questions you may have, because we do a lot of research ourselves too. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. So do we have any comments? Is anybody looking at their agenda and coming up with comments that they would like to make on either side? Okay. So I believe many of us have reviewed and provided the reference material, and we acknowledge the amount of work that Mr. Killian has done on this, and I think this is a very good start. But I do have to agree with Jenna that we need to make sure that we have the arrows in our quiver to get our friendly neighborhood developers to get on board with actually building bigger and building, and growing the density and providing attainable houses so that people can afford to work here. Again, when we talk about attainable housing, what we're talking about is, starting salary of a Penn State professor. We're not talking about the person that is working full-time at McDonald's as just a shift worker. We might be talking about a McDonald's manager, general manager, but we're talking about the people that we need to be in this township, to do the work of this township, like our roads people, our post office, our firefighters, everything. So I thank Mr. Killian for his diligent effort, and I do believe that this is a good start and a good jumping point. And I do believe that, we can look at the MXD at the 60-foot, and as a part of this residential 4, even consider going more on that. Because as you said, if we're willing to give them, where's the area that we can induce people to actually develop? And I, not taking any action, but just putting it in everybody's thoughts of if we look at our commercial areas and go to a mixed use or those commercial areas, what are we all willing to, as a community, to get a mixed housing with a Walmart on the bottom? That reduces the amount of people having to travel. So, I mean, what is it that we're thinking about to do that? And I think the residential 4 makes a great idea to have, but I also think having a mixed use that goes beyond that, because that might be the area where we can at least get something to happen quickly. As Jenna points out, the residential 4 makes a lot of sense if we have a lot of land that we can develop. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of land that we can develop. And, so we have to come up with ideas of either pushing master plans, which I don't know what we do there. Because my understanding is they come up every 5 years, but still they have most of the leeway on that.
Well, planned communities are totally different. Planned communities are planned, and as Jenna said, once they're planned, we can't go back in and say, oh, well, now we're going to change the zoning in here. They're planned, they're not subject to this. So that takes out a decent section of the township. And then the other thing I think we want to look at, right, is, and I have some friends who work in other communities where they're looking at their zoning code and trying to bring it up to modern times. I think there might be some benefit to the township perhaps going out and getting some funding to get a consultant to come in to look at our zoning comprehensively. We have a lot of different zoning districts. We have a lot of things that are changing, especially along the Atherton Street corridor and some other places. So it might be good to sit down with a professional and then engage the public to talk about where we want things to go and what we want to see. His proposal is great. We have pieces of it in place, but also some of his proposal is more urban zoning, and we're very suburbanly zoned. So that's a discussion point that we also need to have as well. So I think it's a good starting point, like Jenna said, and I think there are pieces of it that we can incorporate, especially as we start moving forward with the attainable housing. But I would love to see us, try to get some funding to bring someone in to look at our zoning and bring it up. I know the borough's just finishing up their zoning rewrite of their ordinance. College Township's talking about form-based code, and they've been talking about form-based code for a while. But I think we need to think about looking at our stuff comprehensively and doing an update as well. And form-based code honestly might be something we want to seriously consider out here as well, based on what College Township does.
I hear about it from the College Township reps all the time when I'm at the meetings. So that's definitely something that we can look into. But I do put it to the board. Does this board support the township manager's idea of getting somebody to start to look at that?
Yeah, very much. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Yeah, and that's something we can certainly, I see Chair Magruder's on the call, but that's something we can definitely start discussing with the board as well. And I can start feeling around to see what kind of grant funding we could find to do something like this.
Okay. Given that was not on the agenda, we support you in doing that. And I would make a motion and ask for a second to do that, but I believe that
Yeah, you don't need to.
don't need to. So we support you in getting that done. So with that, I'm going to close, without objection, I'm going to close the R vote for zoning proposal and go to our attainable housing ordinance timeline. Off to the races, Jenna.
All right. So I am going to present a proposed process and timeline for the development of, hold on. I've learned from last time. Let me share first, then present. That's good. All right, can everyone at home see my PowerPoint? Perfect. All right. So I have prepared a outline and timeline for the development of the attainable housing ordinance in Patton Township. The process is intended to be inclusive, transparent, and data-driven. I mean, at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense, the numbers don't work, no one's going to build anything. So ideally, data-driven, grounded in best practices, it's meaningful engagement of the public, the technical experts that we need to come to the table as well for this type of ordinance. So I'm going to provide you with project overview. It's included in your agenda packet from my memo to Ms. Farkas on this is ideal and it's highly aggressive. So I will say anything can happen and this could end up going longer, but ideally, this would be the process. So we're looking at 7 phases, starting July to October 2026. Key components, the advisory committee, as mentioned earlier, we have a lot of public outreach. With these ordinances, you're dealing with the stereotype response to affordable housing. People immediately think Section 8. And a lot of these ordinances that you're seeing in College, Ferguson, those ordinances are addressing the other spectrum of the affordability issue. There are a ton of programs for low income that the federal government provides, the LIHTC properties that I discussed with Patton Crossing development. We are trying to address pretty much for looking at an umbrella from the staff to the other side. So this is your workforce, as our chair pointed out today. So a lot of public outreach so everyone understands what the intent of this ordinance is, drafting, adoption, and again, a lot of follow-up education, always. So this process, we're going to start with phase 1, this is July to August. We're going to initiation and planning. We are going to have our public kickoff meeting. We're going to introduce this concept, gather ideas. We kind of already did this. I presented to you in 24 and the board as well. I did a Mentimeter with the board presentation just to gauge where they were landing with a lot of these concepts. Amending an ordinance is relatively easy. Creating a new one, that's a whole other can of worms. There are a lot of options out there. So that was ideally what we tried to do last year. Get their initial let's put temperature on a lot of these big items that are going to be in your ordinance. Define goals and challenges. We're going to have an internal working team, so this is not only just township staff. There is also Missy Schoonover with Center County Housing and Land Trust. The township has an MOU with the Land Trust, so any units that are built, the Land Trust, and I say we because I am also on the Land Trust, would be managing, just to ensure that, not managing the units, let me put that, to ensure that the individuals that are in those units are meeting the affordability requirements that are in your ordinance. We are not your managers for those units. So that is a lot of the internal working team, and then forming that advisory committee. So we're really going to try to get a big swath of individuals from bankers, and I'm talking the loan individuals that understand how this works. Preferably, if we can, find one with experience in LIHTC as well, because that's where a lot of this confusion kind of happens. We're going to have realtors, we're going to have developers, we're going to have housing advocates. Missy will be on this. Ideally, we will have Habitat on it. Is that Habitat? Yeah. As well. Stephanie Fost on this as well. We do a lot of partner projects at the Land Trust with Habitat. We hold the land, they build the home, and that maintains its affordability. So there are a lot of individuals that would be on this committee to help influence this ordinance. Ideally, one planning commissioner as well, so we can have that constant communication back to the commission. So then phase 2, August to September, we're looking at researching and issue identification. A lot of that's probably going to be on me. We're going to do targeted stakeholder dialogue, again, talking with those developers, figuring out how are we going to make this work. Data collection on housing supply gaps. We just finished our housing trends report for the center region, so that will be coming out as part of the comp plan. So we already have a really good idea of what is going on out there. Review past plans, your housing task force report, and best practices moving forward. And it may be that we're looking at other states. We have to keep in mind their state regulations as we do that, but I will consider any good idea out there. So we'll be looking at best practices, and then really it's going to be defining attainable housing for Patton Township. What is that? And that's really that AMI range. What do you want that to be? And it may be different ranges if they're rentals versus for sale, or you may decide we just want to have affordable rentals. We don't want to do these fee simple affordable housing units. So, and that's all something that will need to be discussed. Phase 3, this is September to December. So this is the community outreach and education. This is going to be a tough time. It is budget season. There's a lot going on. But ideally, we're going to be creating FAQs, a lot of social media, videos, website. Again, it's getting ahead of that misconception of what this ordinance is. Engagement activities, we're going to have open houses, round tables, online surveys. We want to get as much feedback as we can. And then ongoing communication, so establishing a list for individuals who want to be notified about this, so they can get updates, future meetings, what's going on, etc. And then a feedback form online as well. For anyone who does not want to participate in the public stuff, they have that individual forum to do as well. Phase 4, this is January to April. We will be drafting the ordinance. That's staff sitting down after receiving all the feedback from elected officials, planning commission, all of those professionals out there doing this. We're going to be drafting the ordinance. So we're going to have a lot of public meetings here. We're going to be sharing that draft ordinance for them to review, provide comment, etc. This will be in front of the board, yourselves, the advisory committee. The committee is going to be a big proponent of that drafting as well. They are the professionals. They're like, Jenna, this is a terrible idea. This is never going to work. And I'm like, all right, thanks. I'll try again. And then legal review and enforceability. So that will be with the township solicitor. May through June, this is the public review revisions. So we're going to be revising the draft based on that input that we've received, formal comment period, the public meetings, and then the updated draft will be presented to the board for feedback as well. Phase 6, July to August, this is the adoption period, so you will have your final review and recommendation of the draft that was authorized for advertisement. We'll have the public hearing, Board of Supervisors adoption, and it does not end there. Then implementation planning comes into play. You have an ordinance, so now what? Yeah, now we have to actually get it working. We need checklists, staff materials, etc. This is going to be a brand new ordinance for staff to be considering as we're looking at reviews of land development plans, but again, that education for the developers coming in. So they understand what is expected of them. So a lot of places, they will have pamphlets, flyers, and stuff like that, so they can understand what is required of them based on their density that they are proposing. And then 7 is September to October, post-adoption follow-up. So again, educating stakeholders, developing those workshops, the user guides. We want to track outcomes. I mean, ideally, a lot of the updated comprehensive plan, especially when it comes to that housing chapter, we want to have goals that we want to meet, quantitative goals. So we want to be tracking how many affordable units are coming online. So we'll be looking to do that. And then annual, biannual review, if you've sat in any of my trainings, this is a reiterative process. Every time you think you have the best ordinance written, it's not, I promise you. And it is constantly picking at it, editing, and working on it to make sure that it is getting you what you want as a municipality. So key takeaways of all this, very inclusive process with multiple engagement points throughout, transparent, well-documented steps, and then it's going to be rooted in local needs and feasibility. There are a lot of municipalities here that have ordinances in place. Parts of them are great, some are not so great. Luckily, I've had to witness a lot of mess ups and, moving forward on better outcomes. So ideally, with enough examples out there, we can get closer to what Patton needs and ideally be leading the region in this attainable housing ordinance. Questions?
I had one. I might have misunderstood or misheard. I was thinking you started out saying this is going to be focused on workforce housing as opposed to low income, but then I saw 2.3 as defining attainable housing.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused.
And that is my apologies. I've now been planning long enough that I have lived through 3 definitions of this type of housing, which I've just dated myself now.
Oh, yeah, no, I've been here with you.
Yeah, when I started the borough, it was inclusionary, then it was workforce, then it was affordable, now it's attainable. And in my opinion, it's these changes that have happened over time because individuals that aren't involved, that stereotype that comes with affordable housing. The workforce housing, what workforce? McDonald's, like what are we, I hate to be bashing on McDonald's, but they actually pay pretty well. But so over time, planners, we have created new terms to call these things. In addition to a lot of legal issues, we have a lot of law firms that Google inclusionary zoning ordinances and file lawsuits against them.
So it's more semantic, and then 2.3 you'll define and decide when we get there.
Yes, I would say attainable workforce. It's the AMI range is what we're really going to be talking about for Patton Township.
I guess my only thought is you referred to LIHTC, and I'm just not sure how housing opportunities are going to be continuing in the current political environment.
Yeah. So LIHTC, that is a great question. We cannot control the political environment, is what it is. Luckily, a lot of the developments that are built with LIHTC funds, that's 30 years that they are affordable. The one thing that we were worried about at Ferguson Township, which was an amendment that we were looking to include, was to designate existing units. So we had a lot of LIHTC properties that were coming off the rolls, those 30-year rolls. And those affordable units technically didn't need to be affordable after that expired. So we were going to be putting in our ordinance the opportunity for developers, if they own that property, if they buy the property, to maintain its affordability, that could count towards their proposed development that we are currently reviewing. And it was really just to get the affordable units built or designated any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think because to your point, because we are such a student-based community everywhere, I mean, Ferguson Township had Pheasant Glen, which is now Blue Course Commons, because as soon as it came out of LIHTC, it sold to a developer, and now it is rented bed.
Yep.
Ellen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, my question is, would you be also looking at existing ordinances and streamlining those, like to be consistent with what we're doing?
I think as Nicole and I look through, and that's going to be the incentive question, Nicole and I are going to be like, this might move the needle, this might not, et cetera, et cetera. But during that process, I mean, we have to review the full ordinances to see where are we going to permit this density. And it all comes back to where is this ordinance applicable? Most places it's just it's triggered either by certain zoning districts or it's just triggered by the amount of units being proposed. So it's all going to come back to where your ordinance is and what zoning districts we're looking at. But if this ordinance is applicable anywhere, I'm looking at any zoning district that permits that type of density. And we're going to be looking for those little things that will move the needle to get these units built. So through that process, I'm going to do my best to ignore glaring issues that I see in ordinances. I will write it down, but I'm going to really try my best to focus on the attainable housing ordinance and getting the amendments in place that we need for the attainable housing ordinance.
So December 2025? I mean, 6?
Yes.
25? Great.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
You have another gentleman on the, with a raised hand.
Oh, Trevor. Mr. White.
Nice. Sorry, just had a question. Before I ask this question, is this ordinance, and this is just for my situational awareness, because again, not a Patton resident, I live in Ferguson. Is this just about increasing housing supply, or is it more, are there other tools that could be implemented in this ordinance that are more, how do I say this, targeting predatory practices? Is that something that is, on the table before I ask the question?
I wouldn't say it's targeting rental practices per se. Once a attainable unit is built, Land Trust, we will be monitoring the individuals that are in there. Ideally, if there's enough flexibility within your ordinance, so we run in, and they're great situations. We have an individual who meets the income qualifications, they're in a unit, they're able to catch up, they get a job raise, and now they don't meet the AMI qualifications. I'm not in the business of kicking people out of their apartments and where they live. So in Ferguson's ordinance, we permitted, and it's also in College's ordinance as well, you can designate another unit in that development to be your affordable unit, which goes back to why we usually put in these ordinances that whether they're market rate or affordable, that they're all the same, because then it allows that flexibility too. All right, our income qualified tenant now makes enough money, they're no longer income qualified, great for you. If you still want to live here, awesome, you will have to pay market rate. And we're going to designate another unit in our development as that. That's really as far as we go. We won't get into those type of predatory requirements.
What's the, I think it's over in it's College Township, the one right across from the beer distributor there.
Aspen Heights.
Yeah, they've got something very similar to that.
Yeah, that was developed under College Township's ordinance.
Yep,
Okay.
they have 28 units in that development.
Yes, I was
And
looking.
all of them are leased.
And the, in fact, I believe it was that developer that I even gave more than the, what was asked for.
So based on how the numbers shook out, the top floor, and College also permits that all of the affordable units can be in one building. So most ordinance, they require you to equally disperse. That was back in the day, really coming out of New York City. They would designate pour floors or separate entrances for the affordability individuals. So that was a ordinance requirement to get away that equal distribution. But College Township does permit it. I think they recognize the fact that in these multifamily developments, it's a student housing development. And what person that is meeting these affordability requirements, that's working, wants to be surrounded by undergrads. So they do permit that. I don't necessarily have an issue with that either. However, how their mix was shaken out for that building, they had 3 affordable units on the top floor. So as opposed to cutting off the building, they're just like, yeah, we'll build 3 more affordable units to finish out the top floor.
Works there, so.
It is, they're all leased. So.
All right, do we have any questions?
Mr. White has another question.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, from the AMI perspective then, Ferguson, we do 80 to 120, and I crunched the numbers based off of the ACS survey, and that only applies to just under 13% of all of Ferguson. So, yeah, that AMI range is definitely gonna be crucial. So, I don't know, just kudos to you guys for, doing this. I'm excited to see where Patton's going, so. Thank you.
My understanding is we've been targeting that 80 to 120 for a while.
80 to 120 was relatively the standard up until 2021 or 2. HUD released new AMI numbers. They do that every June, every year. It was a substantial increase. I believe the max like $18,000 for income, which any houser that you ask, which is a housing planner, what we call them, that's never happened in the history of HUD. And HUD never goes down, they're always going up. So when that happened, that was actually what sparked the amendment process at Ferguson, because when Missy and I crunched the numbers, while it worked out relatively well for the fee simple homes and townhomes in a rental unit, the developer that we were talking with, they were going to have issues finding someone who is going to make enough money to meet that rental requirement. So how the 80 to 120 worked out for rentals, it was above market rate. So that really sparked the amendment of we need 2 separate AMIs for rental and single-family townhomes, fee simple.
Yeah, it was a big jump.
All right, seeing no others out there. Okay, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns? Anybody from in the building? Comments, concerns, questions? Okay, moving on. Other business.
Don't have any.
Great. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Great, we are adjourned.